The late great country and western singer Jerry Reed once wrote a line, "We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there." Kind of how I'm feeling about the Saints right now. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. So day 14, after the win last night in Arizona, Saints were back in Irvine for a kind of shorter practice this afternoon. The big news, really, right before they went into practice, was the joint practices with San Francisco this week have been canceled. Players, DA, and all kind of talked about it's a little disappointing. Um, DA did say that Kyle Shanahan had contacted him yesterday, saying that was a possibility because Frisco was so banged up with injuries right now, and it was confirmed today right before practice. So um, Da did say that I think they practiced like an hour, a little over an hour, hour and 15, something like that. So it wasn't a very long one. Said, but they got good work in because they were just kind of working some situational stuff, shells, no pads, and they will be off tomorrow. Um, Kind of get the impression that, and when we talk about kind of the injury status a little later, kind of just this is one of those deals. Look, we needed to get him out working after playing last night. Guys are sore, bumps and bruises, that sort of thing. Um, Give him a day off tomorrow to rest, to fully rest, and then get cranked back up on Tuesday. He did say after looking at the tape, some good things. Kind of left it at that. Didn't really expound. I don't know how much he really could. And lots of things to improve on, which, yeah, I think we all can agree on that statement. But he did bring up one of the things he talked about is he, and it's kind of an example, I think, of the overall game. He's like early on defensively thought he did a good job, did a lot of good things in the run game and pressure, but it didn't continue throughout the game. That he kind of sounded a little disappointed that the level of play um, kind of kind of declined on the defensive side as the game went on. The biggest thing that I because I wasn't even quite sure if there was going to be enough. I was listening to his interview to really talk about. I mean, what did they really do today? What could they really talk more about last night? But one thing he did bring up, and I was very happy to hear kind of the way he put this, because before they went to practice, he said it was a tough meeting day. I'm like, good. It needed to be a tough meeting day. Um, and he said, look, guys, we're going to have some thick skin today and accept some tough coaching. And I'm like, good. We need tough coaching. Um, really, and we need tough coaching in the sense that coach these guys up, try to get them better. Because I just don't think a lot of that went on the last few years, but it sounded like it definitely went on today. Hopefully, they got some people's attention. Um, and he said they had to accept this coaching and the corrections that came with it in the meetings, and he thought the team did a good job with that, and then getting out on the field and handling basically criticism. Most of it deserved, I think, as Saints fans, we could watch the game and agree with that. Then translate it out on the field and work on the stuff they needed to work on. Hopefully, they got some stuff fixed. And specifically, if you watch his interview, there it was kind of stuff we talked about in video this morning. Probably some fairly easy stuff that get corrected, but some of it was very bad play that's kind of concerning. And when he talks about some players, he's gonna get to that. I'll play a couple clips that kind of follow along those lines. Um, there's asked about the O line, and he said what I said. The very first play with Alvin on an outside zone left, wide zone left. First play looked like what he thought it should. Kind of looked like what I thought it should. But after that was no consistency, and he's from the offensive line, which I agree. Noticing there were some plays that, they were okay, but it just seemed a little off. We didn't really hit it right. Didn't really gain what we possibly could have. If so, that was addressed, and definitely working on protection. We we talked about that a long time this morning. So. Um, Like I said, the joint practices, they were asked about that, and he was canceled. He's disappointed in it. They really don't have a plan because this literally was confirmed right before they walked on the field today. He was asked about possibly, well, could you bring in another team for joint practices? And he was like, well, I thought about it, but I don't know the logistics of it. Hadn't had a chance to talk to anybody because it was literally as we were coming on the field. Um, so his feeling was probably not, but with the off day tomorrow, he said, we'll kind of figure it out because he didn't even really have a schedule. He's like, we didn't have time to discuss it, that we would change um, our practice schedule and what we're going to do. But he anticipates he said, we're going to get the work in, even though there's not another, and disappointed at the fact that there won't be another team here to work against. I think Carl Granderson and some of the players after when they did their media kind of expressed the same thing. I think they were looking forward to not going up against themselves again in practice and practicing against another team, getting some different looks, some different players, and then the opportunity that you were going to play them on Sunday night. So is what it is. That's kind of the way it shook out. And um, I was looking forward to because I thought it would be a very good test for joint practices where they could get some really good work. And we technically would be getting film on what Frisco's doing in those joint practices when they're being filmed. So that was kind of an added bonus, a team that we're trying to implement their style of offense, getting some of that on tape. And that's what I find most disappointing. Where I mean, not that they're going to show you the wide open scheme, but the coaching staff that was here was there last year, so they probably know it anyway. But a chance as the practice went on, they watched film after practice of every training camp practice we've had so far. The joint practices, one or two of them. Then when you're watching film, you have a chance of watching the other team doing it, and they're probably going to be doing it better than you because they kind of invented this crap or this version of it right now, and they do it very, very well. So I'm disappointed in that possibility not happening. Um, Injury, they were talked about. He said came out of the game, just kind of after game normal bumps and bruises, especially the guys that logged a lot of snaps because they had. Uh, I don't know if anybody hit 40. I saw a list of the snap count early, and I can't remember a lot of 30s because the starters. Some of them only played 10, 12, 14, a lot lighter snap load. Um, so Diaz said, yeah, the guys that logged a lot of snaps are going to be um, not worked as hard and kind of give them a little time to recover. So I kind of take that to mean that this week, when they are getting work in, you'll probably see the starters getting a lot more reps because the guys behind got a lot more during the game last night. Um, Only injury from last night, Zay Stalbert left the game for a while, went to the tent with an ankle, uh, came back in and finished the game. So it wasn't very bad. However, he didn't practice today, and Day said he could be looking at missing a little time. Spencer Rattler had a thigh contusion. He didn't practice as a precaution. Um, Hudson Bradford and McCain also missed, basically the similar bumps and bruised up a little bit, and just held them out as a precaution. We did get some players back on a limited basis, including wide receivers Bub Means, Equanimous St. Brown, and Rashid Shaheed. So hopefully that's, and with the day off tomorrow now, they came back limited day off. Maybe by Wednesday, we'll have all these guys back on the field and doing their thing, so to speak. Um, Also, Shaq Davis was brought back. He was in camp last year. DA talked about him. It was a guy they didn't really want to lose. They were hoping they'd get a chance to bring him back, but he had an opportunity in Philly that apparently didn't work out. Um, so Marquez Callaway in a corresponding move was released, and they brought Shaq Davis back in. And it's coming down. They're needing some receiver help, and he was a guy who said here last year, so they're going to give him a look. Um, it's pretty much it. Like I said, DA talked specifically about two players, Trevor Penning and AT Perry, and we're going to play that for you in a second. But as far as today, I think it was just a almost a recovery type workout, get some work in. But I think the real gist of it was they got the early jump on no day off today. The early jump on, like he said, doing some hard coaching and getting some corrections done, and some players, you know, hopefully getting it through their head. We have a long way to go and a short time to get there. You guys have really need to start putting this stuff together. So yeah, Da was asked some questions about Trevor Penning and At Perry right about the same time in the press conference. They almost came back to back. And when I was watching it, I kind of got the impression, in a weird sort of way, he was talking about the similar. They were both kind of similar in what's been going on in practice, but last night's game they went in different directions. And I thought it was interesting the way he talked about both of them. So we'll cue it up, and I'll pause it at times when we need to.
Technique standpoint, or from a schematic standpoint. Look, I would say there was some good things that Trevor did. I think there's some things that he's still got to work to improve on. It's his first, game playing right tackle. So I'm not overly concerned about that right now. And yet, I think we all understand that we've got to improve, and that's what we'll be out here working to do.
Okay, when he said I'm not overly concerned, the first time I heard it, it was kind of like, wait, how can you not be overly concerned? But then followed up, we understand. Still a lot of work to be done. And there's a question coming up a little later that I think kind of may sum up a little bit of I don't want to say they're kid gloves here with Penning. And I definitely don't know how they're coaching and correcting him or anything like that. Like Da was talking about people needing thick skin, but I think at the same time, they're in a situation right there where they're trying they're trying to keep him confident and not doubting himself or doubting his play or anything like that. I that's kind of the impression I'm getting. Um, Almost, or possibly maybe even not falling into, let's call it, the Foskey trap that he fell into last year, kind of thinking too much and it not working out. But um and I guess he doesn't want to throw Trevor under the bus either. But I mean, we all saw kind of what we saw, and we all heard what we heard about um some of the line play from him during practice, the last couple of practice sessions.
Duke Manyweather, like the guy you worked with in the offseason, tweeted that he didn't see a player trusting himself with this technique at all. Like, did you?
Yeah, look.
And that was the follow up. Duke Merriweather, and I did see this comment on Twitter that when he watched the game last night. He was saying, "I saw a guy in Trevor Penning that just wasn't confident in the technique that a lot of people thought he had learned in the offseason." And um, Duke was like, "No, it's just saw a doubting guy that wasn't trusting in it."
There definitely was some. um, I saw some things that I hadn't necessarily seen out here every day at practice from a technique and fundamental standpoint. Yeah, and so I think that's the key is for all of these guys, and in particular, guys that are trying to establish themselves, is like you see these things out here at practice, and you see the fundamentals, you see the technique, you see the improvement, and then you want to make sure that you're able to kind of see the same thing in the stadium, under the lights, all those kinds of things. So I chalk it up really to a first preseason game, and let's see how we improve from here.
And now, I don't know if I want to give him the pass, chalking it up to a first preseason game and moving to right tackle, but maybe it's fair. I don't know. Uh, but the takeaway I got from that second part, when he's talking about seeing guys doing things fundamentally right in practice, but it's not and I think he was definitely talking specifically about Trevor Penning, that some of the good stuff they saw in practice, despite some of the bad stuff we know about that happened in practice, but the good stuff didn't really fundamentally, the technique and everything, and kind of what Duke was talking about in the tweet, didn't transfer last night under the lights in the big game. Kind of ended it with, we need to see it. So again, long way to go, short time to get there. I think this may be the most important week, next 7 days coming up of Trevor Penning's whole football career, that he's got to put it together. What he knows and what he does well has got to show up next Sunday against Frisco. And what he's struggling in needs to show improvement in 7 days next Sunday in Frisco.
When you went back and looked at AT's game, did you see kind of the things you
Yeah,
talked
look,
about?
I mean, yeah, I saw some good things out of AT. Um, some routes, catching the ball. Not only did he have the explosive play in the 2 minute, he drew the pass interference penalty down the field.
Okay, I need to stop and talk about that for a second, because last night's coverage wasn't the best in the world as far as replays, um, and getting enough angles on some plays to see what's going on. And that was two of them that there were some on X. I did see some people posting like some widescreen shots. I don't know if it was from people at the game or some of the footage that some of the media is able to get to do film study and all. But he, on both those plays, especially the long one to set up the field goal right before the end of half, he just blew up and blew by those guys trying to defend him. And on the interference, he was doing the same thing in the third quarter. And Rattler was dropping a dime on him that if that guy hadn't interfered with him, unless AT just forgot how to catch the ball, that was going to hit him a catchable pass in stride, that he was blowing this guy up. We might have saw a long touchdown pass there. Um, so I liked I like what I saw over. I like what I saw. I was watching it last night in the replay, but when I started seeing some of these angles of a replay, going, holy crap! He just literally exploded by these guys and was going downfield to make plays. And on both of them, Hayner saw him and got him the ball, and Rattler saw him and was going to get him the ball if not for the interference.
Um, you know, caught a nice, red zone kind of fade stop play, um, so and look, I saw a willingness um, to go in there and block.
Now that's something I didn't notice, and I didn't really focus on noticing what the receivers were doing downfield. Um, in the blocking game, and how we didn't really get any runners down there far enough out of the running game to make a difference. And some of the downfield passes, I didn't really notice or weren't paying attention to what was happening. But Perry's one of our bigger receivers, um, for size and especially height. So his willingness to get down there, that's a key, and it's a thing we have to have when he's on the field. The second part needs improvement, but DA will tell us.
And yet I'd still like to see him finish better on those things. And I would say after we had some guys go down, so there's more opportunities for him. Um, the positive is he took advantage of those opportunities, and so and that's what you have to do out here at training camp. Whatever opportunities you have, you got to be able to take advantage of it.
Look, that's my biggest takeaway is what he was finishing with is you got to take advantage of your opportunities. There were times last night there was opportunities for people to make plays. And I'm sure it's happening in practice. Um, for example, the day Hayner had to miss last Monday, Rattler got extra reps, sort of like what Da was saying about Perry, and ran with him. Perry, because of the wide receiver injuries, grabbed him and ran with him. Um, the Samson Nakua got his shot at the end of the game, and Austin Jr. also. And they grabbed some opportunities to hang around. And when it was time to add Shaq Davis, the guy who I saw in the field but didn't really see him too much, Marquez Callaway, he's the guy that gets released. So I think it was like differing what he's talking about seeing stuff in practice, because to tie this together, he didn't specifically mention it. And some people brought up later on some idea of, well, maybe Perry's a gamer. You're not seeing it in practice and it shows up in the game. And uh, yeah, DA kind of poo pooed that one real quick, going, look, I just don't see how. Said somebody with a lot of ability could probably coast through practice and show up on game day and be above average. Um, but he said most players need to practice hard, needs to show up there. It'll translate into the game. They'll make big plays, and that's going to help their team win. And that's what they need to do, is they need to not coast through practice, basically. And when he was talking about that part, and just tying it together with pinning, because he's talking about, I'm seeing stuff in pinning that isn't translating out to the bright lights like last night. Didn't the technique and everything we thought he was doing well wasn't there, and it was a big struggle bus for him. And then a couple weeks ago, tying back to training camp, he was being asked about A.T. Perry, and he's like, look, I'm not seeing the big jump of improvement I want to see from him. He mentioned there's incremental improvements from his rookie year to here, and that's fine. But we're looking to see big jumps from him. And he started balling out in practice, and his name was getting mentioned as one of the guys who was really, really getting it done. And then that translates last night. I mean, he played a fantastic game. He really did. 4 for 85. And if not for the interference, that would have been another catch, I'm pretty sure, with a much bigger yardage behind it, possibly a touchdown. So it's kind of like the two ends of it right there. It's like Penning, both of them are trying to get their opportunities. Penning is showing some stuff in practice. He can't get it to translate. Perry started out slow, but is getting better. And within the last week has gotten really, really good. He gets out on the field. He gets his opportunities, and he shows out. We need to see more of the Perry stuff happening this week, because there's only one more real week after this. And again, I'm going to say it for the last time. Long way to go and short time to get there. And some of these guys are going to have to start making these jumps. And we need to see a big improvement a week from tonight, on next Sunday night in Frisco, from a lot of guys, especially along the offensive line. And the last thing I'll leave you with is we have to get healthy. I'm glad to hear some guys were at least coming back a little bit limited, but they got to start showing up during the week and get the work in Sunday against Frisco. I think our starters probably need to play a lot in that game. So we'll see how it works out. Your guess is as good as mine how all this is gonna shake out, and they're kind of changing stuff on the fly for the fact that they won't have the joint practices. So hopefully they get the work in, they get the improvement in, they fix what they need to fix, they make the corrections, and we see that big jump of improvement next Sunday in Frisco. So tell me what you guys think. Have we turned a corner? Is things looking slightly better or not? Or are we still feeling a little murky and upset about last night not going as well as we all felt like it should have, including the team? So we'll see how it all turns out. So till the next time I see you, I'm Tim. Peace out. Who dat?